That was pretty good. One more time. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Welcome to Glacier Point. And welcome to the best place in the world. I was going to say best place in the world to have a sunset, but just the best place in the world anyway. So, here we are, sunset at Glacier Point. The color should be spectacular. The sunset should be complete in less than 30 minutes. My evening talk is just about that exact same amount of time. So hopefully we'll all wrap up at the exact same time. Okay? So, we are in store for, with the clouds like they are, and it should be great. So, we'll wait and see. How many have seen sunset from Glacier Point before? Okay, so a few of you, very good. How many is this your first time? Wow, that's impressive. Whew. How many from America? Okay, maybe about half or 2/3. How many from Asia? Oh, another third. How many from Europe? Another third. That's a lot of thirds. Did I miss anybody? Australia, Africa, South America. Okay, okay. Well, welcome to the grandest place on Earth, Yosemite and Glacier Point. And I'm Ranger Dick, hello. I've been a ranger here since 1975, so it's home now. And the only drawback to the job is every night I miss the sunset because I'm facing this way. So if it gets really good, let me know so I can turn around and see what you're looking at. Okay? So I need to ask you a question. How many of you are here tonight because you looked in the Yosemite Guide newspaper, the newspaper you got when you came in the park, and you went, oh boy, 7:45, Ranger Talk, sunset, Glacier Point, let's go. How many? Oh, not bad. 12, 15. Okay. Well, folks, for all the rest of you, take a look in the newspaper. Whatever national park you're in, there's lots and lots of programs that the rangers do, and they're free programs. We don't charge. So come on along. Lots of fun talks. Tomorrow night, there'll be a sunset talk right here, same place, different topic. And if the sky cooperates, tomorrow night, an evening astronomy program as well, looking at the night sky. Tomorrow afternoon, a 2 o'clock walk, leaving right from the gift shop, heading down to a really good view of El Capitan. So anyway, lots to do just in this area. And if you're in a different area of the park, look in the paper and find out what there is to do there as well. So, lots to do. Questions before I get going on to the evening? Anything you've been dying to ask? Any questions? Is it no questions or just no curiosity? Okay.
Who goes first? That's the question.
Who was what?
Who goes first?
Who goes first? Do you know what colors we can expect to see with the sunset tonight? Because the same colors happen every single night. Right here, orange. Yes, that's one of the colors in the sunset.
Yellow.
Yellow, very good.
Yellow.
Another color?
Red.
Red, exactly. And do we all know why those same colors occur every night? Always in the same progression, in the same order? Huh?
Smoke and mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors. Well, it has to do with refraction. It's not quite reflection, which would be mirrors. And it all has to do with the same reason that the sky is blue. And you all know why the sky is blue, right? Right, it has to do with the atmosphere. As the sun comes through the upper atmosphere, way high up in the upper atmosphere is where the finest particles of dust can float. So way high up, there's fine dust particles. As the light comes through, the shorter wavelengths of light tend to hit those tiny particles of dust and bounce around a lot. They get scattered out. They bounce around like a ricocheting bullet. So, way up high, the short wavelength of light bounces around a lot and it gets scattered out. So what color? Okay, at the wavelength of light, shorter wavelength, the spectrum goes from blue all the way over to red, right? The rainbow, the spectrum. Which end is the short wavelength? Blue, very good. So, what color do you see when you look up? The color that's been scattered out, which is the short wavelength, which is blue. You're right. That's why the sky is blue. And right now, it's pretty much yellow. Isn't the sun a little bit yellowish in color right now? Yes. And that's because all the violet, blues, and green has been scattered out, the shorter wavelengths. So now we're about in the middle of the spectrum at the yellow. And as the sun drops down even further, it's going to go through much more atmosphere. So even more of the longer wavelengths will be scattered out as the sun is dropping further, going through a lot more atmosphere. So when the yellow is scattered out, we'll see the next color in line, which is orange. And about 10 minutes after that, the next color? Red. We're going the other way. And then after the red, the sun is way down there and the red is scattered out. What color will we see? It gets dark. It gets black, exactly. So, in actuality, somebody said purple afterwards. Well, in actuality, once the sun goes completely down, since the sun's down below the horizon, the Earth is sort of projecting its shadow out a little bit. So if you look out, well, you won't see it tonight, but if you have the wide open space, you can actually see sort of a little bit of a purplish line before it gets dark. And that is just basically the shadow of the Earth being projected out into space. So that's sort of cool too, but we won't see it tonight. Okay, tonight, what I want to talk about while the sun is setting is waterfalls. How many people would be willing to drive a long ways to go see a spectacular waterfall? Exactly. Okay. How many would be willing to walk quite a ways or ride a horse? Okay. Waterfalls, for all time, have attracted people. And in terms of Yosemite itself, why, the first tourist party was brought into Yosemite Valley in 1855. And that was by a man, James Mason Hutchings, who called himself the father of Yosemite Valley. He basically built the first hotel in the valley, brought in the first tourist party, and he brought in the tourists to see, quote, a waterfall that's 1,000 feet high. Come to find out, it's way higher than that, but that's what they thought. So that was to attract people, the height of the waterfall, gigantic. And that's one of the reasons Yosemite became so famous, is for its waterfalls. And this is the best time of year to see the waterfalls. And when Yosemite was set aside, just another 9 years after that first tourist party came in, part of the little blurb written for Congress was by Senator John Kness. He wrote, "To preserve the cliffs and waterfalls of Yosemite Valley." So that was one of the two most important things to preserve, was those waterfalls. So yeah, people are willing to go. I mean, in those days, to get to Yosemite was a really hard ride on a horseback or walk. So, and even in terms of, my life, the very first vacation that our family went on was when I was 10 years old. Coming from New England, I'm from Massachusetts. We loaded up our 51 Nash Rambler, and we went to, any guesses? Not Yellowstone. What's a lot closer to Massachusetts? Niagara Falls. Thank you very much. I was hoping somebody'd get it. But yes, our very first vacation from Massachusetts out to Niagara Falls. I mean, it might have only been 300 miles, but still, it was a big event in a 51 Nash Rambler. So, our first vacation, a waterfall. Anyway, in my whole career here at Yosemite, everybody loves waterfalls. And I've tried to figure out what it is about waterfalls that really attract people. So over the years, I've sort of boiled it down to like 5 main questions on what it is, these 5 main questions that people ask about waterfalls and what it is that they really like about them. So I figured if I discuss these 5 main questions, I'll have it figured out, right? What it is about waterfalls that really turn people on, what it is that they really like about waterfalls. Okay, so I'm going to discuss these 5 main questions, but these questions are mostly sort of the factual aspects about waterfalls. I want you, during this time, to be thinking about sort of the intangible aspects of waterfalls. Sort of what people really feel about the waterfalls, okay? While I'm talking about the factual things. Okay, so, you've got that assignment? Good. 5 main questions. Here we go. Question number 1. And it's like this and anything else in life, but people want to know the biggest of anything. And so their first question is, how tall are the waterfalls? Which one's the biggest? And of course, first of all, let's start with the biggest. It is Yosemite Falls. Does anybody know how big?
2,250.
I heard. Very good. 2,425 feet. Now, why do they call it Yosemite Falls instead of Yosemite Fall?
So it is more than one.
Yeah, it's actually a whole group. It's the upper one, the middle cascade, the lower one. So in essence, it's not truly one waterfall that's big. It's really a series of 3. So whether it counts as, you know, that big whole number or not, whatever. But 2,400 feet, that's a half a mile. Okay? So think of someplace from your home, think of someplace a half mile away. Whether it's an intersection or a school or a church or a store or whatever. Everybody thinking of something a half mile away? Okay. Take that distance from your home a half mile away and then just tilt it up on end. Pretty tall? Pretty tall. So that's about how tall Yosemite Falls is, a half mile. Another analogy that I used to like to use until a few years ago was Yosemite Falls is basically, if you took the World Trade Centers, you took one World Trade Center and you put it on top of the other one, the two of them combined would be about the height of Yosemite Falls. Unfortunately, I don't like to use that analogy anymore. Well, so our tallest waterfall, it is the tallest one in America, and it is the 5th tallest in America. Fifth tallest in the world, tallest one in America. So, Yosemite Falls. Okay, now, we're going to get down to just, about a quarter the size of that fall. Okay, just about a quarter the size, so now we're really getting small. We're talking about the upper one over here, which is, what one can you see over here, the upper falls? Nevada, okay. So Nevada Falls is 597 feet, basically 600 feet, or 2 football fields. Think of 2 football fields, end to end, and stand them upright, 600 feet. Is that tall? Okay, 600 foot, that's like a 60-story building, to give you an idea. So Nevada Falls, the first one of the 2 on the Merced River, coming down from Little Yosemite Valley. That's the main flow of the Merced River. And now that we're down to a small waterfall like Nevada, we're going to go to half that size, again, to the one down below, which is Vernal Falls. That's only half as big as Nevada, 317. That's 1 football field. 1 football field, up on end. So pretty small, huh? Yeah. How many of you have walked up to Vernal Falls? Very good. Did you get wet?
Oh, yeah.
So nice. Okay. The mist. Oh, yep. So now, Vernal Falls is half of Nevada. Nevada is only a quarter of Yosemite. There's another waterfall that's only half the size of Vernal Falls. And it's that one I went to when I was 10 years old. Niagara. Niagara is only half as big as Vernal Falls. It's 183 feet. But I think it's a little bit... Yeah, okay. How many been to Niagara Falls? Yeah. Very good. That's amazing. Anyway, yeah, it's much, much wider. So, those are the heights of the waterfalls. In terms of size, of course, they're all spectacularly huge because waterfalls aren't usually that long. So, that was question number 1. Question number 2 about the waterfalls is there a lake or something back up there? Is there a lake that feeds these waterfalls? Because the water just keeps on coming constantly. So, is there a lake up behind each one of these waterfalls to supply this massive quantity of water? Most people think there would be some huge lake, some source for the water. But actually, you could follow each one of these up. Oh, you may come to a little lake here and there, but it's really just part of the stream. Water flows into the lake, water flows out of the lake, and that's it. So no, it's not a lake that feeds these waterfalls. What is it? Well, if you were here a million years ago, yeah, the answer would be ice. But right now, the answer is snow. Right now, in the summertime, well, today is pretty chilly. You know, we've had a pretty cold snap for the last few weeks. But typically in California, the sky is blue. Are there any clouds in the sky in the summertime in California? No. Do we get any moisture in California in the summer?
No.
Right. It is dry and hot in California all summer. And these waterfalls still keep going. Not for the whole summer. So there is no magical lake. And you were right, the snow is just coming down from, the water is just coming down from melting snow. And that snow that landed here all winter, because right here at Glacier Point, the average snow depth is about 6 or 7 feet. Right here, all winter, the snow is usually about this deep. And this winter was about just a little bit less than average, so maybe here. So a lot of snow, all winter long. Those snowflakes are frozen together. They're all holding hands, they're not moving. And now this time of year, the sun's out, those frozen bonds are melting, the snow is gradually turning to water and running downhill. How many would like to be able to be a raindrop and flow down all those waterfalls? Wouldn't that be a fun ride? You know, without getting hurt? That would be spectacular, yes. So, no magic lake up above. It is simply melting snow because California has such a lot of snow in the wintertime up in these mountains. And we're really fortunate because these mountains are parallel to the ocean. And where does all our water come from? In California, where do the storms come from? Where does the moisture in the storms come from? Yeah, the Pacific Ocean, absolutely. So all that moisture is coming from the Pacific, landing on the earth, and staying frozen for a while, but racing back into the Pacific again. So it makes a very nice cycle. Actually, each winter I do recognize a few snowflakes that were here the winter before. They've just come back, made the trip again, right? How many people recognize those snowflakes? Oh, yeah. But this water is just heading back to the ocean again, ready to be evaporated and come back again next winter. And not only does it supply the waterfalls with water, but how about the rest of California? Does California have a lot of water other than the mountains? No. So really, California needs the mountains for almost all of its water in the whole state. So, the water, not a magic lake, just the stream flow from the snow. And then, another question that I usually just get in the fall, in like late August or September, people come up and say, where is Yosemite Falls? Because anybody been here in August or September?
Yeah.
Can you see Yosemite Falls? Yeah, either that much or nothing at all. Yosemite Falls dries up in August and September because we get no precipitation all summer. It's very dry in California, and there's not a lot of snow left even right now to feed Yosemite Falls, so it does dry up. It doesn't last as long as all the other waterfalls. So, any other changes that Yosemite Falls goes through? How about if it rains out really hard one day? Yosemite Falls will all of a sudden pick right up and become a bigger waterfall. But it won't last long. As soon as the rain stops, Yosemite Falls will die back down again. So definitely a seasonal fluctuation to where it's the fullest about probably a week or two ago. Yosemite Falls was its fullest, and now it's beginning to decrease each day. And the next question, in terms of number 4, people say, well, why is that water, how did these waterfalls all form? I mean, what caused one place to have, well, Bridal Veil, Yosemite, Vernal, Nevada, Illilouette, we've got like 5 of the biggest waterfalls all in one canyon, all within a couple miles of each other. What caused these waterfalls? Any idea? If you say it in one word, starts with a G.
Glaciers.
Glaciers, yeah. Prior to 2 million years ago, Yosemite Valley, or let's say Yosemite Canyon was here, but the canyon that was cut was just cut by a river. And what shape does a river cut when it cuts a canyon? It's basically a V-shaped canyon. So we had Yosemite Canyon for who knows how many millions of years, and then the water would just be cascading down the side of a canyon, and then digging the canyon deeper in the valley, in the bottom. But After 2 million years of ice. A V-shaped canyon after an ice gouge, because the ice really gouges at the bottom of a canyon a lot more than it does on the sides. So a V-shaped canyon turns eventually into a U-shaped canyon. Yeah, exactly. Good example, right up here. I mean, in terms of a nice glacially carved U-shaped canyon, rather vertical walls, curved bottom, and another vertical wall, relatively U-shaped. So, Yosemite Falls, a little side stream, just sort of crashing down in that old canyon. Now that it has vertical walls, Yosemite Falls is just dropping straight down, so it's a waterfall. Same as Bridal Veil, same as this little canyon coming in there. But Vernal and Nevada are just a slightly different. Vernal and Nevada were on the main river, so they were underneath the ice, and it had to do with cracks in the rock. Like Half Dome, wouldn't be half if it didn't have a big crack in the rock. Same as Vernal and Nevada, major fractures in the rock, so when the glacier rode over it, when it got to that fracture, it would pull and pluck all the rock away on the downhill side. So it'd leave a cliff face underneath the ice. So yes, what caused the waterfalls? In a word, glaciers. And the last question, which I don't get as much, but they say, well, why does Yosemite Falls dry up in the fall, but these keep running all the time? Vernal and Nevada, even in September, you can come and get wet by Vernal and Nevada. It'll flow every year, no matter what. Whereas Yosemite Falls dries up. Any guesses why? The difference. The size of the creek, to begin with, Yosemite Creek is a much smaller creek. This is the main river. So it's a smaller creek, and the watershed, if you've ever heard that word, the size of the area that drains into a creek, the watershed up behind Yosemite is about 40 square miles. Okay, not too big. The watershed up here is over 120. So larger area, huge creek, huge stream compared to a small creek. So the size, definitely. Also, the elevation for Yosemite Falls. It comes from almost 7,000 and 8,000 feet. The elevation back up here, which you can't see, goes all the way up to 13,000. So lots more elevation, lots more snow, lots more cold, which keeps the snow melting for a longer period of time. Whereas Yosemite Falls is much lower. And lastly, Yosemite Falls is an area that's sort of leaning this way, flowing south, so it's actually facing the south. So we get some pretty hot weather because it faces the south. Up in this area, it faces all different directions, so it tends to stay frozen a lot longer. So those are the major differences. So there we go. Is that it? Those 5 questions? Is that why everybody loves waterfalls? Because of their size, where they come from, how they're different, how they were formed? What were the things you were thinking about in terms of the more intangible things about waterfalls?
Tranquility.
Oh, just watching a waterfall, the tranquility. What else?
The sound.
The sound, very good. Just the roar, the sound, the cacophony of sound. What else?
Power.
Oh, the power, very good. What else? Tranquility, you can hear it, the sound, the power, the beauty, thank you. So all those other intangibles that I didn't discuss. And I'm going to end with one quick story. About 5 years ago, they assigned me a special tour to do. I had a group of 12 Russian congressmen to tour Yosemite. They had whatever kind of a diplomatic convention they were going to. Well, they had 4 hours for Yosemite. I was their guide for their time to see Yosemite. So we saw the giant sequoias. We saw Glacier Point. We saw Yosemite Valley all in 4 hours. They were ready to go. And I told the tour guide, no, I need 15 more minutes. And we were down near Yosemite Falls. I knew the back way over to that bridge at Yosemite Falls. And it was in May, so the water was really flowing. And the tour guide said, no, we must go now. And I go, no, I need 15 minutes. I want to show them the waterfall, really. And he says, okay, bring them back quickly. So I bring these 12 Russian congressmen with me, all suit coats and ties, all dressed up very nicely. and I bring them the back way to that bridge overlooking the waterfalls to, Yosemite Falls. And it was May time, so the power, the wind was blowing sideways, the roar, there was mist and moisture just blowing completely sideways, just like rain drenching. And so they're all behind me and they looked at the bridge and they just like, rain blowing sideways. And they looked at that and I said, come. And so I walked out into the rain. I was just getting soaked. The wind was blowing me like this. I was walking out. I get out in the middle, come. And finally, these 12 perfectly dressed Russian congressmen, one at a time, begin to follow me. And at first it was like, ooh. And then pretty soon it was like, whoa. And then pretty soon it was like, and they were just like, and then when they got out there, they just had, like these 12 mature guys were just, getting drenched. I mean, their beautiful clothes, just soaking wet. So finally, after about 10 or 15 minutes, they were just, I brought them back, and the tour guide looked at him and went, and so, as we were getting back on the bus, one of the Russian congressmen came up to me and said, I have seen Yosemite Falls once before, but that is the first time I have ever experienced Yosemite Falls. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is the color going to keep changing little by little until it's all gone? And it's, what would you say, orange or red? It's got to be red by now. Looks a little reddish. Looks like it's actually disappearing in some places because of the clouds over there. Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
That's for sure. Thank you. Yeah. Accent isn't strong.